Hi, I'm Shea Filling, and we are live. I'm actually in Fort Lauderdale, and I'm with Billy right now. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me, Shea.
Well, you've had such a unique path from winning titles on the regional circuit to being on the Ultimate Fighter to now being known in UFC for your relentless pace and just a lot of exciting fights. How's life right now with all that you've accomplished?
Yeah, it's good. It's been, I kind of look back and, I've had a great career so far, and I know I still have a lot of unfinished business. I'm coming back from a knee injury right now. I had knee surgery about 3 months ago, and so I've just been in the meantime. I've just been enjoying being a dad and helping out everyone at my gym, GraciePac here in Tampa. I've been helping the next generation get to my level, hopefully. And but I still got some unfinished business in the UFC, and I'm really excited to get back in there, hopefully sooner than later.
Now, I'm always interested in like why people do what they do and really what sparked your passion for MMA. And obviously, you've experienced a lot of I think I'm trying to go back into your history. I mean, you started out like in street fights. Is that correct?
Yeah, I guess you could say that's how I got my start. Not I wasn't like this like crazy like underground street fighter, but when I was in like high school and my early years of college, we'd go out to Buffalo, and every now and then we would get in like little tussles. So like I said, I wasn't like this like hardcore like street fighter, but we would get into some fights, and that and playing hockey and then just being a big fan of the UFC early, like like that first season, the Ultimate Fighter, kind of got me, kind of sparked something in my brain that this could possibly be a career for me. And one thing led to another, and I started taking fights, and then started getting some momentum, and then next thing you know, it was just like my biggest goal to get into the UFC, and I've been able to accomplish that, and now I got some bigger goals that I still need to take down.
Well, can you take me back to the experience of you moving to Tampa to, for residency and how that really set the tone for your journey?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I grew up in Lewiston, New York. My family still lives there. I still go back there all the time. But what happened was, I graduated high school. I didn't like most people. I didn't know what I wanted to do, so I paid out of pocket to go to the community college that was like right down the street. And during that time, a lot of my friends moved away to college. They started chasing these goals, and I just felt like after a while I was just doing the same thing over and over. The same people that were still there didn't seem like they were going very far, and I just felt like there wasn't a lot for me to do there. So I would visit my sister, and it just seemed like it was like a booming town, and there was just so much to do here that when I finished, I got my associate's degree. I decided to move down here. I still didn't really know what I wanted to do. I got my business degree, but I was training martial arts at the time, kind of casually, and that's when I moved here and I really got into the training. And I just decided to give it everything I got instead of continuing my college education, just basically training full time and working some side jobs. And I just told myself, I was already 21 years old. I said, if I put everything I have into trying to get to the UFC, I can make a career out of this. But I really gotta put everything I have into it because there's guys now that are 21 that are already in the UFC. So it took me a very long time. It took me about 10 years, about 9 years, and I put everything I had into it, got into the UFC, and now I'm living the life that I wanted to. But it definitely wasn't the easiest path possible.
Well, that's obviously very inspiring. Was there any times within that 9 years? I mean, because that's a long time, and
Hmm.
uh, you know, how did you get through that? Because there had to have been obviously obstacles and just keeping yourself focused, and like everybody's on their own different paths, and you're focused on your path. But like, was there any times where you kind of questioned, your path that you were going on?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that was and it's something now that I try to explain to my fighters because there's so many guys that want to get to the UFC, and I think some of them think it's like this straight path of like, I win these fights and then I make weight every time and my opponents don't pull out, and there's so many things that got in my way, whether it was having to work two jobs, having to deal with injuries without health insurance, and dealing with figuring that path out, dealing with people that would come in overweight, dealing with opponents that would pull out last minute. I think the hardest time was when, and God always, He really tests you. I feel like, and it was when I was already on the Ultimate Fighter. I came back, I won a few more pretty big fights, so I was probably like 8-2 or like 9-2, and I felt like I was close to getting in the UFC, and I tore my ACL. And at this point, I'd already won pro titles. I had already won these big fights, but I really had nothing to show for it. And I knew I was going to be out for like probably a full year. So this was when I was 28 years old, and I'm just sitting in bed every night in this tiny apartment, like you did all this for nothing. You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah.
those doubts start creeping in, um and I don't know if it was luck, but I really didn't have that much to I didn't have really a backup plan. So I just took it day by day. I did the rehab like an absolute madman. I actually got my real estate license while I was hurt, and I still have it to this day. That was going to be like my extra backup, my new backup plan. But by the time I got my that real estate license, my knee was back, good to go. So I took a boxing match. I beat the crap out of that guy. Then I got one last regional fight, completely destroyed that guy. And then I got on the Contender Series, and the rest is history. But there was definitely some hurdles, and there were some up all nights wondering if this thing was ever going to happen, and there was definitely a lot of doubts. And I just stayed true to myself and told myself, as just take it day by day, and it'll work out. And just had a lot of belief, and I'm sitting here now, 11 fight UFC veteran, and a lot more to prove still.
Where does that determination come from? Because like you were going over everything, like just even like when you're questioning, was I mean, it sounds like you faced a lot of struggles, and you know, what keeps you going? Like what is that inside of you?
It's a good question. I think a lot of it is just the way I grew up, the way I watched my parents work. They both worked their butts off. They To this day they're both, you know, in their low 70s. They both still work even though they could retire, and I think a lot of it is like I never wanted to be that guy that like moved out of town and then like had to move back home and like move back in with my parents. So a lot of it was just wanting to prove my supporters right and proving doubters wrong, that I wasn't just this like loser kid that like had to move back in with their parents. I also have some successful brothers and sisters that motivated me. You never want to be like that loser sibling that like everyone looks at this, you're like, oh man, there's Billy off being like some local regional fighter. So I definitely had a lot to prove to people, and I always had a chip on my shoulder because I'm the youngest sibling. So I always felt like I had to do more, and I never wanted to be like that. That sibling that they looked at like he never made it.
Now, in your family, is there anybody else that is very big in sports? Was your dad into sports, like, or any friends, or just the people you were around when you were growing up? Like any memories that kind of stood out to you?
Yeah, not really. My brother Jim was probably the most. Um, he wrestled and boxed. At like an early age, like after like high school, he did some boxing and some wrestling. He's probably like the closest. My other brother Bob did a lot of like weightlifting, and my other brother Austin was just primarily like a hockey player. So they were like we were pretty athletic, not like super athletic. I also grew up with a couple guys that wrestled, boxed. We came from kind of like a rougher area where like, people would, be into that kind of stuff. But a funny story was that my mom never wanted me, like, she like didn't want me to play football because it was too violent, and like they kind of kept me away from violent sports. And I ended up being an MMA fighter, which is probably the most violent thing on the planet. So it's kind of funny. My mom doesn't think it's funny, but I see some humor in that.
Yeah. Now, I believe you're inspired by David. I hope I'm saying his last name right. Goggins. Yes.
Yeah, David Goggins was definitely. I read both of his books. He's very inspiring. Yeah, I love that guy.
Now, how did his philosophies show up in your training movements, would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. So I listened to his first book. It just lined up this way. I listened to his first book um, before my Contender Series fight, and he got me hooked. I listened to him on Joe Rogan first. I was like, man, this guy's wild. And he grew up in Buffalo, pretty close to where I grew up. I actually remember like the skate land that he talks about. I've been there before, so that there was a little bit of a connection there. And then just listening to I just love I think everyone loves the story where he's just like this big fat guy working as as a bug exterminator, and just basically a self proclaimed loser. And he basically dug himself out of this hole and turned himself into like this absolute savage. And I love like that. Everyone loves like that good comeback story, and
Mm-hmm.
to listen to that and like what he put himself through and what he ended up doing, it was just very inspiring to me. And I tell all my fighters now that like you want to have that mentality of David Goggins, but you got to know when to stop right before, because all of his stories end up with like, I ran these hundreds of miles, and then I ended up with two broken legs, and I ended up in the hospital for a month. And I was like, okay, you
Gee.
gotta stop right before you end up like that, right? So there's definitely something to be said about that mentality, and especially today's day and age, if you can have that type of mentality, you're gonna outwork everyone, because most people are just playing on their phones all day. If you can dig deep like that, you're going to end up a successful person, I think, without a doubt.
With all the fights that you've done, is there is there a specific moment that it just clicks? Like you're like, this stands out to me as obviously a milestone, but any particular moment that people wouldn't have expected?
Um, one, just the way you worded the question, I would say like my first fight ever was one that like it always stuck out to me, because um I probably shouldn't have taken the fight. I was only training for a few months. I was still living in Buffalo, and someone at the gym I was training with, he was like this like older guy. He wasn't very good, and he got injured getting ready for a fight. And they kind of like jokingly asked me like, "Hey, would you want to fight this guy?" They're like, "He's 4-0. He's a really good wrestler. He's really good at Muay Thai." And they kind of like laughed about it, and I'm like, "Yeah, I'll fight that. Like, yeah, I'll fight that guy." And he was, like I said, he was undefeated. And um, I remember leading up to the fight. I went out to like one of the bars, and we were all like hanging out. And he was from a school that was like he grew up in a high school that was like very like almost like a rival school to us. And I told people, I'm like, yeah, I'm fighting this guy. His name was Josh Lang. And people were like, "You're gonna fight Josh Lang?" They're like, "Are you out of your mind? Like that kid's a savage." They're like, there was like these like crazy stories where like he got his arm broken in a wrestling match, and he ended up like winning the wrestling match. And they're like, yeah, he's been doing Muay Thai like crazy. Like there's all these crazy stories. And I was like, yeah, I don't care. I'm gonna fight this guy. And we ended up, it was a great fight. I still think I won the fight. It ended up being a split decision.
Hmm.
One of the judges said that I won all 3 rounds, and the other two said I lost 2 out of 3. I ended up taking him down. He was like this crazy good wrestler, and I ended up putting him in an arm bar, and I almost snapped his arm. Like, and he was tough. He didn't tap. He didn't tap to it, and we just had like this
Wow.
like crazy fight. And like I said, this was in 2010, so it was my first amateur fight ever. I lost a split decision, and after that fight, I'm like, it's just like this fire just grew inside of me where I'm like, one, I never want to lose again, and two, like I'm like, if that guy was 4-0 and I felt like I did beat him, like to this day, I'm like, I still want that one back.
It's
It's
a
just
adrenaline rush. Like,
exactly, and
yeah.
it was something that started my career, and 15 years later, I still think of that fight where I'm like, man, I should have won that fight, but it motivated me to, when I moved to Tampa, I was like, this is what I want to do full time now. Like I'm in love with this sport now, and it's something that always resonated with me. That like I was willing to fight that guy, and I knew I was willing to fight pretty much anyone.
Wow. That's awesome. I feel the passion, like you just see the excitement that you have. And that's honestly like, man, I wish there's fighters that, some people have it and some people don't. And you can't make that. It's just within you that, but like I was saying, that adrenaline, I feel that way when I go to events, when I'm performing or on fashion shows or whatever it is I'm doing. Even right now, talking to you, interviewing you, there's an adrenaline being in this world that you all, all you guys are very inspiring to me. Now you're juggling parenthood, running, a gym. How does being a father, being an entrepreneur compare to being an athlete inside the octagon, would you say?
Yeah, I try to find that balance, and kind of like what you were just talking about. Like I'm very lucky. Like these are, you see like like memes and stuff. They're like, you know, this is what you prayed for. Like so, don't be upset with a busy day when it's something that you love to do, and that's why I do have so much passion for. I have passion for being a father. I have passion for being a martial artist and being in the highest organization, um, and and running my own school. These are things that 10 years ago, like in 10 years, if everything goes right, you're gonna be a father. You're gonna be in the UFC. You're gonna own your own business. You're a boss. So that's where it's they say like if you love what you do, you're never gonna work a day in your life. That's kind of the position I'm in now. Like it's of course like I just had one of the hardest strength and conditioning sessions in a very long time, but when I'm done with it, I'm like, all right, dude, this is what you signed up for. Like don't be upset because it was hard because this is what you always wanted. So that's kind of how I look at my life. It is everything I dreamed of, and I have a lot more dreams for the next 5, the next 10 years. And the goal is to just keep knocking off the list and to get to that level where it's like, okay, now this is where you dreamed of to have teenagers and to watch them grow up and have a successful marriage. Those are kind of like the next steps. And every day I'm obviously very goal oriented, so every day I wake up and try to check some things off my list or get closer to those next goals and those next milestones.
I I think it's so cool that you have your own gym. I mean, what is your schedule like in a normal day? Like, how do you balance everything that you're doing?
Yeah, so
So you have
it's
no excuse. You have no excuse to stay in shape because you got your own gym. You got
yeah,
like all these.
that's what that's very very true. And actually, so I had my knee surgery like 3 months ago, and just being there every single day, like I was itching to get back, and I think I pushed it a little too hard the other day, and now I'm like, all right, now you got a sore knee again, you got to start over. But yeah, that's to answer your question. I luckily I have an incredible staff. I brought in all of like the best fighters that I knew, that the ones that I was coaching for the adult program. So all of our adult coaches are badasses. They all know how to fight. All the jiu-jitsu guys that I've trained with for years and years and years. And I'm very fortunate where my wife works maybe like 2 days a week at the most, and we have her parents that watch the kids when she's gone, and I can kind of come home. I come. We only live like 15 minutes from my gym, so I can come home, hang out with the kids for a couple hours, go back to the gym and teach or train or bowl, and then I come back and then we do Zoom meetings just like this. Like I was just got off the phone with one of my consultants, And I'm looking at one of my babies sleeping right now.
Oh,
And so it's just like a full time thing where it's a juggling act, but I'm getting better and better at it.
you sound like you're living the dream. You know, you've had a really amazing career, and that there's, like you said, it is the beginning. There's so many different chapters of this life and different goals that you have set. And what about for your kids? Like, what do you think? Like, if one of them said, "Hey, I want to be an MMA," would you support that, or what's your views on that?
Yeah, no, I get this question asked all the time, and I'm like, man, it's so hard because it really, it's cliche, but this isn't for everyone. I feel like there's way easier and safer ways to make money. My oldest son Will, who is at preschool right now, me and him like wrestle around all the time, and I kind of teach him moves. So they're both definitely going to train. My goal is for them to be very fluent, especially in jiu-jitsu, where it's easily the best martial art for self-defense. Do I want to see them get hit in the head? Absolutely not. Like, the older I get and the older my kids are getting, I see some of these young kids getting hit. Man, you don't need to be doing this, but I'm gonna do my best to let them do what they want to do. I definitely want to get them into sports, playing different sports, being very active, which they both seem like they're going to be active anyway. Um, if they want to, if they want to train and be fighters, I'm going to make sure they know, like, we got to be all in on this, because things I see are people that they just kind of want to be fighters, and they want to take fights, but they don't really want to train that hard, and the consequences are very violent. You know what I mean? You get
Yeah.
brutally knocked out, or like they get the snap or their leg ripped off. So it's one of those things that you either got to be all in 100%, or don't even just train and have fun with it. But don't take fights if you're not in all in, because you're gonna get hurt.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, that's the thing. People don't realize how there is a danger to this. I mean, you're risking your life, a lot of it, but like you said, if you're putting everything into it, and this is all you want in life, everything is going to work out. And honestly, you're a success story. I mean, your story is amazing and very inspiring for so many other people that want to get into MMA. Can you show, like, what I'm sorry, where can we find your gym? Can I'm going to give a shout out to your gym. If anybody's in Tampa, they want to check out your gym, where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. It's right in it's Carrollwood. It's like a very small town right in like the Tampa area. It's right. It's you can look it up online. GraciePac, like GraciePac, PAC, MMA. We built. I've owned the gym for almost 2 years now. We built it up, and it's got like an incredible fight team and an incredible kids program. We try to do a little bit of everything, where, like, if you're day one and you want to just learn some martial arts, you can jump into like the fundamental classes. And if you're a fighter, we have a huge fight team. Everyone's super close. We got 30 people on the fight team that, every single week, we've had the last 3 weeks, we've had fights every single week, several guys fighting every week, which I try to take the guys under my wing. That's something that I can do, where I can show you exactly what it took for me to get to the UFC. I can help you with the managerial stuff. And I think we got a very good program, and I think in 5 years, 10 years, it's gonna be one of the gyms that you're seeing consistently on Saturday night in the UFC.
Well, I haven't been to Tampa yet. When I'm up there, I'll let you know. I'd love to check it out. I'd like to take a class. I'm interviewing all these MMA, UFC, BKFC. I want to take a class myself at some point, because I honestly respect you guys. I respect you guys so much, how much you put in.
And we'd love to have you drop on in. We'd love to do a segment with you there.
Awesome. Well, listen, it's an honor having you on my show. Billy, I appreciate your time, and thank you so much. And I wish you the best on everything, and your family and your gym, and just thank you so much for your time. It was an honor.
Pleasure, and I wish you nothing but success. Have a great time here in Florida.
Thank you. You too. Bye.